Hi everyone, my name is PK, and here I have Chris Wright, who's a member of the Property Investment Accelerator. Chris was just about to settle his sixth property tomorrow. He started his investment journey in 2020. He's a designer based in Melbourne. He's a dad, which he reminded me is the most important thing, which I think it is for me as well. And he's just done like really terrifically. He's bought three properties now. Like through the course, he already had a couple or a few before he did the course. So in this episode, we'll talk about sort of how he started his journey. Actually, his former next door neighbor is a client of mine as well, so they have a really good relationship. And I think she's bought like 10 properties. So, he has, I guess, at least a small ecosystem uh, in which to bounce ideas and kind of marinate the investment juices. But for those of you who maybe don't have that, don't have a circle of friends who, you can just be honest and be yourself with and talk finance, talk investment, talk property to kind of, just get away from the humdrum of life, then this episode hopefully will be really, really valuable. His total portfolio value is almost $4 million now. Like I said, six investment properties. And in this episode, we'll cover different things. Like I don't script them. So hopefully we can talk about why he started his investment journey, whether it's cracked up to be like, what he thought it would be, how he's managed his time being a dad and a family person, how he's managed six properties in 5 years, from an like a borrowing capacity perspective, because that's always something to maneuver, his biggest challenges, maybe his biggest successes, best advice. We'll talk about anything that comes up, but yeah, in advance of all of that, Chris, thank you so much for making time and congratulations on your journey so far.
Thanks, VK. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Welcome to the Oz Property Investment Mastery Podcast. My name's PK and I help busy people build passive income by buying top 5% growth and cash flow property and build a portfolio using data without wasting months doing research, spending weekends at inspection or catching flights, or dropping $10,000 to $20,000 on buyer's agents every single time. So if you're confused, lack confidence, and just overwhelmed with all the information and marketing misinformation available online and don't know where to start, then this show is for you.
Well, I mean, let's start from the start. So, I don't exactly know when you bought your first property. Was it like just before COVID hit, or was it like in the mid to end of 2020 when like the world was burning down?
Towards the end, it was December 2020 when the first one settled. But through COVID, we actually had an apartment in Melbourne that we had lived in and then we leased. So we renovated that, turned a one bedder into two. This is obviously before I'd done any research on what I should or shouldn't do in property investment. And we did all right out of that. And with the time in COVID that we had, on our hands. My wife and I were working at home and only smaller hours through the week, so we had extra time on our hands, and we just decided to start researching property investment. So we sold that apartment, and we had some funds on our hands, and then we actively set out in buying some properties, and so those first few happened in quick succession. The first three, and they were using buyers agents back then.
Sure, sure. And so then what made you sort of switch from using buyer's agents to then wanting to do it yourself? Because presumably, I mean, I don't know, but presumably those properties did pretty well. Because I mean, it's hard for them not to do well given the timing when you bought, like right at the onset of the COVID boom.
Yeah, I think, well, one did very well to start with, and that's actually probably since been my least well performing. And the other one was a bit slow. Not only that, there was actually quite a lot of time for the first one. It settled in December, but I probably reached out to that BA quite a few months earlier, and then very little communication. Um, so that was another reason. And then, I'm a designer, so I do work in property and stuff, and I have an interest in this world. And as we got more and more involved researching this stuff, I just got a real bug for it. I didn't learn about you until I met my neighbor, which you mentioned earlier. I was finding every avenue I could, books, podcasts, to learn about property. And I was trying to do it in the background, but it wasn't until I did your course that I had the confidence to pull the trigger. I definitely did. I had offers on several through the years, and I didn't settle on the next in Cairns until a couple of years after those first three. But yeah, like I said, I did try a few times, but tried to find Ballarat and a few other places, and then just for one reason or another, I ended up pulling out on certain deals. Tried some shares for a bit as well, quite a big portion of the funds into shares, and that just didn't work out for me either. I think I bought right at the peak, so and I just even crypto a little bit, and since then I've become a lot more vanilla in that world and just focusing more on property.
Right. I picked up on something you said, which is one of your properties, that one of the earlier ones did really well very quickly, but then
Mhm.
over the last 5 years, it's actually been one of the least well performing, if I heard you correctly.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know, do you mind sharing where that is and like what the lesson is?
Sure.
Because sometimes we're tempted, to buy in a booming location that could, give real good instant equity, but really over the long term, that might not be the best decision. So was it a
Mhm.
case of that, or what was the context behind that statement?
So it was in Caboolture in Queensland. Um, and I just think generally there's a lot of land out there compared to some more inner suburbs in Brisbane. Um, it did really well. It's on a corner block. It's zoned up to 25 meters. Um, the one of the reasons I made that remark is because it's the lowest yielding by quite a way. So I think I bought it for 330. It's probably worth 650 now. So it's done well. But it's only renting for 450, I think. And most of my others are much better yielding. So it's this constant internal battle I'm having whether I should keep that one or free up the funds and capital to invest somewhere else. And I've just held it because it does have that development potential. Um, but it's been a little bit more stagnant than some of the others in more recent years. So yeah, it's something I haven't decided what to do yet. It is a trigger there's a few triggers I could pull there. Um, but yeah, it hasn't gone on, and it's partly because it did really well to start with. But
Hmm.
the data that I look at now for Caboolture doesn't look great. And so that's got to be part of my thinking.
Yeah, right. And I don't mean to stereotype, but I don't know if designers, once again, I'll put my hands up if this is offensive, but do designers have a numbers background? Like, as part of like what you do, is it very quantitative? And the reason I'm asking this is like, how intuitive was picking up the course and running with it? Because it's quite data heavy. You don't have to be a mathematician, but you do need to not be afraid of numbers, like just addition,
Mhm.
subtraction, division. But you got to enjoy it a little bit, right? Like, how was that
Yeah.
process for you, being, I guess, not an engineer or IT professional, or I don't know, some other profession?
I didn't find it too bad at all. I strangely, for a designer, enjoy that stuff. I nearly did engineering out of school, so I was kind of mixed between. I've got a bit of right brain, left brain for me, and I like kind of the more analytical side of things as well. I'm a bit more of a manager of the office these days and like ingoings and outgoings. So yeah, it worked for me, but I don't think it's practically it's difficult at all. And to me, it just tells a story. And so for people who aren't as good with numbers, I think you can lean into the story that it's telling. When you looking into those numbers, you look past the digit, but look into the story that it's telling. And it's fascinating for me to learn as you're going through the data points that you teach, to pick up different elements of that story of the local area. Like I love listening to what do you call them? Demographers.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
they talk a lot about the data, but they turn it into a story, right? And I just really that stuff fascinates me. So I think that's the part of it that I like.
Yeah, me too, actually. There was this, I forget his name, is a German guy, a really cool guy I had on my platform maybe a few years ago. I probably need to get him back. But I was just
That's
mesmerized because
awesome.
it's like, it's almost like they do a really good job of portraying future scenarios, but in a sort of pictorial form in your mind, but they use numbers to do that. So they're like, it's almost like their paintbrush is
Yeah,
calculus, but they're
fascinating.
painting a
Yeah.
picture. It's very fascinating. So then on that point, you're in Melbourne, you bought your first property, at least through the course, in Cairns. Um, what what was it about Cairns? What was the story that you had figured
Mhm.
about Cairns that made you confident, sitting there in Melbourne, not catching any flights to go up and visit the suburb, visit the property? What was that story that you had, painted for yourself on the Cairns property market?
Yeah, so I think at the time a lot of people were going into Townsville, and I definitely looked at Townsville, and Cairns as well. It's a really funny one. With my wife, I try to do, I love doing all the in-depth research, but then at the end of the day, I go back to my wife and get her gut feel on things, and it gives her some involvement, but I actually really trust her gut on things as well. And as we all know, Townsville's done really well, but Cairns has done well as well, but a little bit less boom, a little bit more steady. And I kind of like that, to be honest, because at the moment I feel like there's still plenty to go. It's already grown 200 grand. So from just under 450 I bought for, I think it's probably worth yeah, around the 650 now. And yeah, the story there and the data was similar to Townsville. It was just affordability, strong growth, strong economy. It wasn't just a tourist town anymore. And fascinating for me was one of the last things we looked at was just the satellite view with the terrain turned on Google, and you could see the hills. Um, and so in Townsville, you can see it's actually quite spread out. And so in the longer term, this is my thinking, it may not be justified or not, but there's a lot more easier development coming in Townsville over the long term. I'm sure that's not okay. We'd all know there's not a lot of building approvals in either city. Um, but I'm thinking 30, 50 years away. Whether or not we hold for that long, I'm not sure. Whereas in Cairns, the mountains are just straight on the edge of the city. And so it's only going to stretch long ways. So
Mm.
um, in my eyes, we've bought in the southern corridor, which is really safe from floods, and it's really close to this town centre. And they are talking about development all the way down, and people are investing in, is it Gordonvale,
Yeah.
this little like suburb for detached a bit. And so people are investing further down now. And to me, in the medium term, that's only going to strengthen the closer suburbs. So a few reasons there. Yeah, my gut feel on it was good, and I'm sure I would have done. I helped my brother buy in Townsville a year or two after we bought in Cairns, and he's done really well as well. So, not to say one's better than the other. It was just a gut feel thing.
Yeah, no, I think I completely agree. In fact, I was sort of reevaluating my portfolio a couple of months ago, and I figured for myself the one that I have in Mount Sheridan, and once
Mm.
again, very close to yours in the southern corridor of Cairns. I thought, let me hold this for another like at least 10, 20 years. So I had like a
Mm.
roofer on, and we got the nails, like I think the screws and nails on the roof, like all redone. It cost like five and a
Oh,
half
right.
thousand dollars. But I think that's the first real decent renovation, not renovation, but maintenance thing I've had to do on that
Mhm.
property in 10 years. But I thought it's worth it because I'm just going to keep it forever. And
Right.
just proactive maintenance. And so I think it's a really good observation that data is very, very powerful. But sometimes, yes, you used your gut, but also that gut was informed, right? You looked at the
Mhm.
terrain, the topography, and I think I fully agree with that. So at this point, you were on four properties. Before
Mhm.
we get into your fifth and your sixth that you'll settle tomorrow, fingers crossed. Um,
Mhm.
like what were you thinking at this stage, right? Because four properties, no easy feat. You're not that it's a competition or anything like that, but you're already like winning in many respects.
Mhm.
What at that point, what is your goal? Like, you mentioned at the start, or at least before we hit record, that your daughter, your family's a big reason why you're investing in the first place.
Mhm.
What is your goal, like 10, 15, 20 years out? Is it to accumulate generational wealth that you can pass on to your daughter, or is it a passive income goal so that it sounds like you like doing what you do, like in terms of design work, maybe reduce
Mhm.
your hours or your wife's hours, or what's your financial goal?
Yeah, probably a few things to touch on to answer that as well. So firstly, out of the back of the fourth, I was actually really proud that I'd done it myself. It's something that as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to do since the first three, and I was getting more and more fascinated with the world of property investment. And the first three had done well, so I was really proud. I'd used the skills that you teach to negotiate, so I thought I got a really good deal as well. Um, and I was very confident in the area, which again, the ones I pulled out of earlier, I just wasn't. So that was really strong feeling for me that I'd done that by myself. Uh, then in terms of the goal, another thing you teach was to buy to aim for six to start with, or one of the tools that you show is that the possibility is to buy six, sell three, and own the other three outright, or maybe progress to commercial. And so that was something that really just gave me something tangible to lean into, because until then I had nothing set in stone. I was just investing, and that was always a bit foggy. So I remember turning to my wife for the first chapter in your course and going, "This is the best money I've." Oh, sorry, I don't mean to make this sound like a sales pitch, because it's not. You asked me not to do that, but this is legit about what I said to her. Was This is the best money I've spent in property so far. Was just the um, kind of the guiding light that they gave about what we could aim for. So I'm like, okay, let's get to six. Um, Having said that, after the fourth, being really proud, I think I kind of went into my shell a bit, because finance wasn't that easy. I was with a broker who was telling me, we were pretty stretched, and we kind of rested on our laurels a little bit after that one. And then it wasn't until I needed to refinance after that, because some of the interest only periods were going to end, that I went to her, and she basically told me, we might not even have the borrowing power there to refinance, because interest rates have gone up. So then I looked around. I interviewed quite a few brokers, um, and found one I really liked. Three of them were saying, yeah, we can definitely refinance, but one in particular said, yeah, we can refinance, but here's a game plan. We can actually buy more, and we don't even have to go into trust to do that. Um, and so I was like, well, that's a no-brainer. I'm going to do that. And so then I got the bug again, and quickly since have gone refinanced end of last year, bought in Mackay in February, and then bought another one, settling tomorrow. So got that bug to move ahead again. And now that we're about to reach that six, I'm about to have another really proud moment, because that was something that was a really strong goal for me. And all I can tell you now is that I know that's not it, but I don't know what's next. So
Okay.
yeah. So to answer your question, for now it's passive income. Sorry, long-winded answer. Um, and that's just to do with a bit more optionality, freedom with the family, travel, time with my daughter. Like you said, I do love my job, but perhaps I can work for myself in the future if I get some bit more time on my hands and have time to spend doing that. I'm not sure, but yeah, it just opens up the options, I think, once we get to that passive income goal.
Yeah, no, that's a really good answer. Um, I picked up that you did survey a number of brokers to see who you vibe with and who could get the outcome for you.
Mhm.
Of course, interest rates have, just fallen very recently again. They're probably going to fall further. I think it's a great idea for people to go to their brokers, because you might get a lower interest rate. You might be able to release more equity if your property value's gone up. even if interest rates didn't fall or don't fall, you could get a better lending rate because your LVR would have gone down. There's so many ways to improve your situation by dealing with brokers. What lesson, Chris, well, maybe I'll ask this, like, what piece of advice do you have for folks in broker shopping? Because like there's one way to do it, which is like go to like 5 brokers, 10 brokers, and be like, who can give me the lowest interest rate? Like that's very tactical and not very strategic, and you're very unlikely to build a large portfolio that way if you're just focusing on interest rates alone. What were the kinds of questions that you were asking them, and what were you looking for? Because at this point, you weren't inexperienced, like you weren't a noob, like you kind of knew what you were talking about. You know how to talk shop. So
Yeah.
how did you interact with them?
Um, yeah, I sort of firstly was just taking them through my situation. The goal at the time, so that was sort of mid to late last year, was can you help me refinance? Because I was really keen for that to happen. And as you said, that was before interest rates started coming down. And yeah, so I was really going into that. I had already heard a lot about most of the ones that I interviewed because I'd found them on podcasts. And I'd listened to their interviews before I interviewed them. So I got a background from them, and I felt like it's funny, even speaking to you, we've never actually spoken in person except for an interview in the course, but I feel like I know you. No, it's not the other way around. But yeah, it's funny when you hear people on podcasts, you feel like you know them. So there was already a barrier broken down there. There were a couple I interviewed that I hadn't heard before. So really what I was looking for was just answers that suited me. And I think the thing that surprised me most was that this one in particular came with not only answers, but the next steps. And that was just really exciting because all of a sudden these other doors open that I didn't think I was even close to, other than maybe shifting strategies and starting to look into trusts. But with a young family, I was getting a little bit conservative with things. So yeah, he encouraged me to going down that path, and we've been better off for it. We've like you said, with interest rates, it wasn't about that. We've actually had to pay higher interest rates to get into these next two, but in my eyes, it's totally worth it. Knowing that we can refinance out in the future, but we're getting into strong growth locations. So I don't think there'll be a question there. So yeah, I just I can't remember specific questions I was asking, but it was probably around the certain lenders they go to, the number of options they have there. I knew they were all pretty reputable, so I didn't have
Sure.
questions there.
No, I like that point around next steps. I remember when I was in my earlier stages of my property journey, my mortgage broker produced like a 3, 4 slide document, and I'm sure he did
Mm,
it for a lot of his clients, but it kind of had my journey, like, okay, you'll be able to get to X property in X years if you do this, and then X+1 property in X+1 years if you do this. So it built a roadmap for me. It wasn't
yeah.
just about this next property, and that kind of built a lot of confidence that there was a bigger picture, a more strategic play that the broker understood. Maybe I didn't understand it as well at the time, but at least one of us did. And that gave me a lot of confidence. Speaking of confidence, I want to come back to something you just mentioned before, which is around negotiation. You mentioned
Mhm.
that in the Cairns property, you left after, buying the property, left feeling really confident and kind of proud in yourself. And you had negotiated a really good deal. I want to pick up on that point because I think sometimes people use, and I'm not trying to bag buyer's agents or anything, but people use buyer's agents because they feel they can't negotiate themselves. Like, who am I to negotiate? Why not just pay someone to do it for me? They do it every day. Surely
Mhm.
they're better than me at it. What was your experience? Because, it's not like you're a master negotiator. Well, maybe you are, I don't know. But you learnt negotiation
Oh,
through
yeah.
the course. Like, what was your experience of like learning it and then putting it into action? Was it difficult? What did you learn?
I don't think it was difficult. It just gave yeah, like a step-by-step process in terms of the back and throw, with the agent. Uh, it was out of the back of the building in pest inspection. There was nothing serious. There was some issues with some drainage and a couple of things, which actually amounted to a decent amount of money. So I think they wanted 480 odd for it, and then I went in around in the 450s, I think, maybe 455. I ended up getting it settling for about 446, just because we negotiated back and forth on some items, and most of which I didn't end up having to act upon. But I got quotes, and I've got those quotes still if I ever need to use them. But it was more just the back and forth in terms of, okay, if you're going to say no to that, then I'm going to pull back on this. And it's just knowing which levers there are that you have the option to pull. And then I think very quickly they can see that you're, an educated buyer, you know what you're talking about. You're not just going to be bullied around. Not actually don't think that agent, I've become very close with that agent since, the selling agent. But so I don't think he was actually trying to do that, but it still set me up on the right foot to be able to negotiate. I think in the past I probably didn't think I would have had the confidence to push as hard as I did with some of it. I might have folded a bit less, but got less off, or just accepted it for what it was. So yeah, it was very powerful in that way.
Yeah, sure. And I'm a big believer, like I always think that, if it's your money that you're spending, no one can negotiate better than you yourself, because you care about like every $100 or every $1,000 or even $10. Like I say to my son, like $10 isn't nothing. It's something, someone has to earn
Mhm.
it. He has like this piggy bank, and I think he's collected coins from different parts of the world that we've been to, and he's got one coin that says 10,000. I don't know which country it is, like very low currency. And so the other day, what did he do? I think he pulled on the kitchen drawer, and it that kind of came out a little bit, and I was like, this is gonna cost like $100 to fix. He's like, that's nothing, And I was like, what are you talking about? That's not nothing. He's like, well, I've got a coin that's like 10,000. I'm like, that's not how it works. That's a different currency.
Yeah,
Anyways,
it's a good
like,
lesson.
yeah, so negotiation is so important because no one cares about your money as much as you do. So I think it's a really good point that you've made. Now coming to your fifth property in Mackay, I think that's really cool because it's like above 6% yield. You
Mhm.
bought it, of course, in 2025. These days people think that it's impossible to buy above 6% yield, in a diversified town, that in a budget of 500, $600,000, it's impossible, but it really isn't. What was your experience in buying that one?
Yeah, so when I went into the market in Mackay, actually Ember was looking there too, and she'd been looking for months and finding it really hard. Uh, and then I ended up buying there in 2 weeks. So I think sometimes it's luck of the draw, but also it was not a massive block, probably smaller than I would have set out, especially regional, to buy. But the deal was just too good to say no to. Like, it was there, and I just threw an offer on it. Didn't expect anything back, and then they bit. So um, it was leased, like I said before, and I think that definitely turned some of the market down. Um, uh, it's a relatively new property, so there's good depreciation on it, as well as the strong yield. And built into the contract was that the existing tenant was going to move up from something in the fives, maybe 570, 580 per week to 650. That was already built in.
Oh, wow.
And funny enough, when it came to releasing, which was only going to happen a month or two into this after settlement, um, he went to the new PM that I hired and was really reminding them of that piece, that he was scared it was going to be more. I was like, I'm happy with
Okay.
650. Let's keep the
Yeah.
tenant. It's built into the contract. There's no problem there. It's already
Yeah.
a good yield, but clearly there's more scope for growth when we come up to renewal. So um, yeah, I just think there's we know it's not a mining town, but there are miners there and they're willing to pay. And then, being a smaller block, there's less maintenance. I've got larger blocks in other cities, capital cities, and other regionals in Cairns is a big block. So I didn't mind pulling that trigger in a bit of a different play. Less maintenance, I think, over the long run. It's still a 4x2, so it's still a big house. So yeah, I think we've done really well. Yeah, I remember using my friend, my neighbor who does this course. I was talking to her quite a bit because I was nervous, going, "Am I doing something silly because it's a smaller block?" And in the end, we just agreed, like, you're just getting such a good deal, it's worth it. So it was a good 10 or even a bit more percent below market value, and the CVA valuation came back even higher than that. So yeah.
Wow.
So
So can I ask, because sometimes when people hear 10% under market value, especially like new investors or people who aren't yet investors, they think, like, how can that be? It's not like you can buy a stock on the
in a
stock
hot
market
market,
below under
yeah.
market value. So, like,
Yeah.
how are you saying that? What was the circumstances by which you think it was bought cheap?
Oh, well, there was just properties nearby sold at, like, just before it and just after it for 60 grand more. So it was pretty clear to see. And there were some were slightly bigger blocks by 3x1, some were the same size blocks, 3x1. But they were all in the high fives, and some were even over six. So it was the anomaly. None of them were tenanted. So I think, to me, that's the only reason I can put my finger on. It's the data we researched looks for hot owner occupier markets, and so the story I can see there is that it is that sort of market. It's not, whilst we know a lot of investors have gone there, it's still a big enough town that dilutes enough. So I think people might have skipped on it because maybe they saw the rent lower, or the pool of buyers is already smaller because it's tenanted. So I just think timing was probably good as well. They had just said no to another offer slightly lower than mine. So I think it was just good timing.
Yeah, right. No, I love that. And I think that's the nature of an inefficient marketplace where everything isn't perfectly priced, and that's real estate. And so if you're I just thought of this analogy earlier today because I was recording a video about something else, and I was like, if you're like a well-trained sniper, like in the army or something, you're just sitting there right on top of a rooftop or whatever, and then you can immediately identify your target because you're just looking through that
Mhm.
through that scope all day. And you know exactly
Yeah.
what's up. And so I think educated property investors are like that. You can identify an under market value deal from a mile away, and
Mhm.
then you don't question yourself, oh, why is it under market value? Is something wrong with it? You've done your homework, you've done your due diligence, the data stacks up, and you take the shot, right? You go for the property. So I think that's really cool, and it's a hallmark of having confidence in yourself. We won't give away the location for the most recent property that you've bought,
Sure.
if that's okay with you. Um,
Mhm.
but kind of stepping back, I want to understand, for the three that you bought post doing the course, what's the kind of cash flow situation? Like, of course, I know that your broader portfolio, maybe with the Caboolture property, might have kind of pulled it down, but or
Mhm.
maybe you can share both, like at a high level, overall portfolio or the last three. Like, are you heavily underwater? Are you like having to chip in tens of thousands to hold this portfolio, or what's it looking like?
I think with the recent interest rate drops, we're positive overall, including depreciation. So we're sitting well. Obviously, when maintenance issues come in, then we have to chip in a little bit here and there. But as you've seen by the portfolio value, there's been well enough growth to justify that. So yeah, we're sitting pretty well. Like Cairns is well over, I don't know what that would be now. What's the maths on that? 450 to a 650 rent. That's somewhere around 8%, is it?
Yeah, it
Or
is. Yeah.
7%? Yeah. Um, yeah, so we're doing well there. Mackay, we're doing well off the bat, and even the sixth one will be pretty well as well. And then the earlier ones were just bought. They've gone through so much growth now, and I have done some refinancing, but they're all sitting well except for that Caboolture one. So yeah, we're pretty well sitting pretty. Like it was hairy for a while there after, I think it was more so after Cairns. There was times when interest rates rise where we were chipping in more, and we just had to. I just knew we had to just um, battle that for a bit. I was talking to my wife about it. It's like it won't be forever. We just need to deal with it. It's not a huge amount either. It's just something we need because we'd come from a place where interest rates were so low, so it was a bit of a kick in the gut, to be honest. We just weren't fully ready for it and should have been. But I think that'll only hold us in good stead in the future. We're just going to be ready for all the ships to be rocked. That economy that you talk about all the time, up and down. The portfolio needs to be a steady ship and just be ready to take on what's going to come, and then that way the economy won't really be a problem for you up or down. So yeah, I
Right.
just knew we had to hold, and we were fine to hold. There was no problem. We just had to rejig some funds into savings. That's all.
And I guess that's the importance of yield. Like if
Mhm.
you had bought in I don't know, Sydney or Melbourne proper,
Mhm.
3% yielding property, maybe that would have also gone up pretty well. Maybe not Melbourne, but maybe in Sydney. But, it would have been hemorrhaging 40, $50,000 a year in negative cash flow. And, most people can't afford to hold that. And then all of a sudden you're selling your property, you're out of the market, house prices keep going up. It's not a good situation. So your experience is really good at a real life example of how important yield is for a property
Mhm.
investor. And maybe the last question I'll ask you, Chris, is, talking about being steady through the journey. What are your thoughts on, the constant noise as an investor we experience from the media and other sources like, oh, what if capital gains tax discount gets taken out? Or what if negative gearing changes?
Mhm.
Or what if this? Or what if that? Like, please be honest. I know you will be, but like,
Mhm.
how do you react to that? Like, is there a case of like, oh my God, this sucks, and then you calm yourself down, or like,
Yeah,
yeah, what's your thoughts?
not at all. To be honest, I'm very selective about the media I intake. I don't really consume mainstream media at all. I pick and choose. I pretty very rarely turn on the TV, and if it is, it's just for Netflix or something. It's not the news. And then the informative stuff that I like to listen to is well-selected podcasts on news and on finance stuff, and a couple of comedy things to mix it up. But yeah, otherwise it's just I'm very selective, and it's not that I'm buried. Like they do talk about this stuff as well, but I think they do it in a much more balanced way. Um, and like I think pretty much hearing some people who've been around for a while and seen different ebbs and flows in the economy, the thing that they've always saying, yourself included, is that um, the ebbs and flows will come. They always do, and you just need to be ready for it. And there'll be good times and bad times, or maybe not. If you might not call it bad. If like to me, I haven't been impacted at all. COVID was both a huge benefit because there was a COVID boom there for us, and that set us up. And then there was a downfall at the back end. Things won't rise forever, and you just need to be prepared for both sorts of things to come at you. And I think as long as you have the confidence and a steady ship there, then you're going to be prepared for anything. And there's also levers to pull, so there's no worth stressing about stuff. If things ever went tits up, then there'll be a way to work around it. Like we've got some optionality now. We're 6 in. We're very fortunate to be in that position. And so there's nothing that's going to be stressing me out too much.
Brilliant. I love that. I really do actually. Six properties, some people could say, oh, like you're swimming in millions of dollars of debt, but your LVR is strong. It's a positive cash flow portfolio, and you're not stressed out. I think that's so important, that sleep at night factor. Um, Chris, is there anything that I haven't asked you or that you'd like to share for the benefit of, maybe pieces of advice or golden nuggets or anything that you want to share before we end up?
Not really. I just think Yeah, I think investing in myself was probably one of the best things I could have done. And that's just really lightened things up for me over the years. And I like it's a continual journey for me. I'm going to continue to learn. And I've got the bug. I love it. So if anyone's interested, they're probably interested because they're watching this now. So yeah, get into it and don't look back. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I think having a friend doing it as well has been a really good thing that we touched on before. So increasing that circle around you and having people you can talk to. And I think as time goes on, you know, my brother's doing it now, and like few other friends and stuff are starting to ask me about it. So it's got more and more people to talk to. It's good.
Yeah, that's only natural. You set a bit of a trend in your friend circle in that way.
Yeah.
But Chris, no, congratulations. You've done really well. I'm really excited to see also how, because I know this is not the end, you know, how you'll progress over the years to come. I always like to say to anyone, you know, honestly, I don't care if you do my course or not. There's 200 of these types of client interviews on the client results playlist. You know, fantastic people like Chris. You can get a lot of education and inspiration from them. But do one thing. If you're on the fence, I'm not talking about my course. If you're on the fence about investing, you know, do your homework and just get off the fence, either this way or the other way. Because if you stay on the fence, then I think that just creates pain. Because then you see people just, you know, basically, to use a vulgar term, just get filthy rich, and you haven't, and then you just become more and more envious, and you know, you have FOMO, and that's not good. So just choose which side of the fence you're on, and just commit. But I'm glad that you chose the right side of that fence, Chris, and very happy for you, and many congratulations.
Thanks so much, PK. Thanks for everything.
Thanks everyone. Hit the subscribe button, give it a like, and please share this. You know, anyone who you think will get benefit, share it. You know, who knows, it might help them get off the fence, and in 10 years' time, they might be laughing because of what you just did. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.